Hey guys, Cody from Organic Woodwork. So our friends at Wisebond sent us a deep pour kit to show off their new Wiseshift color shifting mica powder. And not only did I think it was a perfect opportunity to show this stuff off, but also to kind of walk you through the process of how to measure out how much volume you need in gallons in order to pour in your dimensional pours. And I'll walk you through how I calculate that, the math involved, and then we'll see how this stuff turns out. Okay, so before we start calculating how much gallon volume we'll need for our void, we need to first measure out our void in kind of a rough rectangular dimension with a width, the length, and the height. So to get our width, what we're going to do is we're going to take our tape measure and we're just going to follow along this void. Whenever we get to what we think has been or has seen to be the widest point, we will make that our width of our rectangle. And the void is pretty much the same, give or take about 1/4 of an inch, and at the widest point it's 5 inches. So the void, we'll say our rectangular void here is 5 inches wide. The length is 36 inches and the height is 1.75 inches. All right, so now comes the fun part, math, right? So we said the length was equal to 36 inches. The width was 5 inches, and this is of the void. And then the height is 1.75 inches, or 1.75 of an inch. So to get the cubic inches, we just multiply all of this. And when you multiply all of that, you get 315 inches cubed. And that is our volume. Now, to get our inches cubed into a volume that we're working with, such as gallons, we'll just do it this way. So 1 inch, 1 cubed inch is equal to 0.00433 gallons, right? So we just multiply this by 0.00433 and we get, it's like 1.369. Okay, so basically we'll just round up and say 1.4 gallons. Sorry, I'm not the fastest at math. So say 1.4 gallons. A kit of the Wisebond Deep Pour actually comes in 1.5 gallons, so we can get all of this done with one kit. Now you're saying, Cody, that's cool, but that's a small void. What if I'm doing like a larger table? So if you're doing, say you're doing like a 10-foot table, right? And you have live edge where your deviants are more of, they're more than just 1/4 of an inch difference. Say, you're off like in one part you're 6 inches, one part you're not. Well, just take the parts that are kind of the same and just do this, but just section it out. And then you can add all of this, your gallons together, and that'll tell you how much volume you need. Say, for example, you just measure out this part, and this will be your length and your width and your height, right? And then you have this section, and you're gonna do the same thing. Length, width, height, you get your volume for whatever, say 3 and 4 gallons, and then you'll just add these up, and then that will give you your total amount of epoxy that you'll need for your larger pours. Anyways, there's a simple way of doing it. There are some that probably do it a lot more complicated, but I'm a simple guy, and so I'd like to just do it like that. All right, so now that we know how much we will need, we have one kit. We don't need to use another kit because we can do this entire void pour with our 1.5 gallons. And now you know how to calculate your cubic inches into gallons. Probably looking at this and going, what are you doing? Well, this is such a small project that I didn't want to create an entire mold for it. So what I did is I just laid down my slabs. I have this MDF here, and we took silicone and we went around the edges all the way around. And then it's already cured, and so we'll just pour, and then when it's cured, we'll take this out, and it's thin enough that we'll just put it through the planer. I know a lot of people will be like, why would you put epoxy through the planer? We do what we want. All right, so now we're ready to get the pouring. So again, we're using the Wisebond Epoxy Deep Pour Kit. It is a 2-to-1 ratio that allows you to pour up to 2 inches at a time. Since we're using the entire 1.5 gallons, we're just not really going to measure much out. Just pour part A and then pour part B.
All right, and now for our pigment, we are going to use the Wiseshift color shifting powder. This color is the Equinox. I believe they have 10 different colors that they're coming out with. Again, these haven't gone out yet. So we get to be one of the first to try it, and I always like trying things first. It's kind of cool. As far as how much, honestly, I think I'm just gonna put in the entire 5 grams. I know that is probably overkill. I can almost guarantee that it is. But, I mean, more is always better, right? All right, so now that our powder is added, we set a timer on our phone. The mixing time for this is 6 minutes, and so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to show it mixing, but it's probably going to be sped up because that would be a very boring 6 minutes. To mix it, we are actually just going to use the drill with the paddle here, and you can pick the paddle up on Amazon. Link for that will be in the comments or in the description below. So there, now that the mica powder is in the epoxy pretty well, we just slow the drill down quite a bit just because it decreases the amount of bubbles. Another way to decrease the amount of bubbles is to actually just do it by hand, but I'm lazy. All right, so if you get some bubbles, it's very easy to kind of get them out. Just you can use your torch here, or if you have a heat gun, which I do, but I like the torch a little better. I don't know if it's just because I'm a pyro or what, but I mean, they're very easy to get out of. Just knock them out. You'll have to do that a few more times as it cures. And so yeah. Well, it's probably hard to see because the lights are hitting it. Let's see. All right, so this is the moment of truth, and I'm really digging these colors right here. So the camera doesn't really do it justice, but this thing goes from like blue to purple to green. It's pretty cool. Now is the time to demold, and this is not really that crazy of a process. All right, so there you have it. Now it's time to put it through the planer and make this thing something cool. So we took it out of the mold, and this is what it looks like. And I really don't know if you can even see this really changing, shifting colors in the camera. It's kind of, I've tried taking some videos on my phone just to see if I could tell, and I really can't, but in person you can definitely see it shifting. We have some purple, blue, and green, and it's just really cool. So anyways, stupid heavy right now, and we want to make this a serving tray. So we'll plane this down, and then what I'll do is I'll actually probably take it through the bandsaw and just rip it in half and probably get 2 out of this. We'll see if that works. If not, it's okay. Yes, I do use the planer. I know I'm gonna get a lot of people going, well, it's really horrible on your blades, and it is, because as you're pushing it through, the blades are gonna get hot, and it's gonna actually cause some smearing and melting on the epoxy. So anyways, it's not been quite 72 hours yet, so we're actually gonna let this cure a little bit more before we throw it through the planer, because it will get hot and you'll have some pieces of the epoxy melting. It's just the nature of the beast, because I'm not trying to put it through a drum sander and have to wipe the sandpaper down after every pass. I will take my chances with the planer. So anyways, so probably tomorrow we'll actually rip that down. All right guys, so today's the day. We're gonna plane this down and possibly rip it along here and get 2 out of it. We will see. So yeah, let's head over there and do this. So as you can see, you know, when you throw it through the planer, you get these little pieces of plastic shavings that are sticking to the epoxy. So again, goes through the planer, gets hot, gets sticky, right? And you have it on both sides. So what I do is I actually just take my Rotex, throw some heavy grit, and knock that stuff off. Okay, so just from knocking that off with this 80 grit, as you can see, this is now just, it's done. And the reason I pointed that out is, you know, we used that for this process of just knocking that big stuff off. It was like 2 seconds of sanding and that pad is done, and that's why I don't really use it for the epoxy. And that'll come into play later when I show you why I use the Mirca system with the Abranet paper on the epoxy. Okay, so we've planed it down. We've sanded just a little bit. We haven't sanded this thing down yet. Just to see how thick it is as of right now. It's just right at 1.5 inches. So I think we are going to take the bandsaw and rip this down to 3/4, just under 3/4 of an inch, and we can get 2 out of it. This will be my first time actually ripping anything with epoxy, so I'm not sure how well it's gonna do, and at the very least the side that gets cut will be the bottom, because I have a feeling that the blade is gonna get really hot and probably mess with the epoxy a little bit, but we'll see. So anyways, let's do this. Okay, so we have our resaw blade on our bandsaw. We are using the Timberwolf 3/4 inch 2 to 3 TPI or tooth per inch, which should do really well for what we're doing. And so yeah, let's rip it. All right, so we have our resaw fence here, and what we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna slide this over till it is our blade center to 3/4 inch here. And we're going to lock it in place. Okay, now that we have this set, now we're going to set our height to 9 inches. All right, so we have our hedgehog on there. I don't know if anyone has one of these. They're actually used on the table saw, but I use it on our bandsaw, and it just kind of helps keep stock in there from sliding out or anything. And then it just gives a little bit more for when you have your push block. And I don't know, a little bit, maybe it's overkill. I just like to be safe. And how you set it to your stock is you just put your material on here like so, and not touching the blade. You'll put your hedgehog here, and just kind of get it there to the material and just tighten it. And what it does is it kind of just keeps it from getting any kickback. And again, it's probably overkill. I just like to be really cautious. Okay, so I take back what I said. I said I was going to use the bandsaw edge or bandsaw blade side as at the bottom, but after it went through the bandsaw, this portion of these boards looks so uniform, and it's going to be look way better. And so I'm actually going to use this as the top, not the bottom. So now the fun part, we get to sand. And using the Mirca and vac system with the Abranet abrasive, it actually is kind of the fun part because it's super easy using that system. If you want to know more about it, you can watch another video that I did, and it'll also explain why I like to use the Mirca product for epoxy specifically. We're going to start with 80 and we're going to work our way up to 320. So let's do it. Remember earlier when we took the Rotex, the festool, with just some hard grit festool 80 grit paper, just to knock off real quickly the little epoxy flakes that were on there. We were time lapsed, but we were on these for significantly longer. And if you'll notice, same 80 grit paper, and I will probably use this again because it's still very, very grippy. So, I mean, that's just one of the benefits of this Abranet. You know, even on the epoxy where the other abrasive really starts to clog up and it has no grit, this stuff is, I mean, it is still very grippy. And I'll use it again. Now, something to kind of point out, that took kind of a lot longer. Really take your time at the lowest grit, because the more due diligence that you give in your lower grit, the easier it is to then sand up to the higher grit. And you'll see how fast the rest of this will go. the last grit that we hit this thing with was 240. Before we hit it with the 320 grit, we're actually going to take this wet rag and we're going to wipe the boards. That will water pop the wood and also clear any tiny epoxy dust particles that are still in the epoxy here. And after that dries, then we'll hit it with the 320 and it should be super, super smooth. And the clarity of the epoxy will be amazing. So now that it's dry and we have water popped the wood, and you will be able to feel the difference. But before we hit it with 320 grit, what I want to do is we're actually going to connect our Dero sander to Bluetooth. And I have an entire video on using the Mirca Sander on epoxy and all the numbers and everything. So if you want to check all that out, go ahead. It's in a separate video, so you don't have to sit here and explain all that to you. So, but we're going to connect the sander to Bluetooth. There we go. So now that we have our speed dialed in, let's sand our board. Alright guys, so we have them sanded down, but they're not serving boards yet. So what we're going to do is we have some leftover hardware from a kitchen remodel, different types, and we're going to add the hardware to the boards. Once we add the hardware to the boards, or get them drilled in place, then we will undo it, finish them out with some wood butter, and then put our hardware on and we'll be done. So let me show you how I measure out for the hardware. I'm using the frog tape method. I've seen this 1,000 times. It's actually pretty genius. I don't know who originally came up with it, but anyways, I'll show you how I do it. All right, we're gonna take some tape about the length of our hardware here. We're gonna just line that up. Then we're going to take whatever is handy and we're just going to puncture a hole where the screws would go. Here and here. Okay, so now we want to come to where we're going to put our handle. So we're going to put it about right in there. Well, we have our tape with our holes that we know exactly where the screws are going to go into the hardware through, and so we just place our tape evenly along the side, and we'll take our hardware, line it up with the holes just to make sure we get it proportionately. And voila. And now we will drill in through where our pre-marked holes are, and we know that we're going to get a perfect alignment into the screw holes of our hardware. We'll drill our holes, lining it up with our tape hole. There we go. All right. And then we will do the same to the other side. All right, so this is the bottom of our board. As you can see, our screw has a little washer around it. We're not going to actually put any rubber feet on the serving tray. We want it to just be flat. So we're using this bit to kind of widen this out a little bit so that our screw will actually set down in there that holds our hardware. Okay, see if it sits down in there properly. All right, and that'll work. Okay, so for our other serving tray here, we're actually going to use just these knobs instead of handles, just because we have them and why not. We're going to put them at each end of the board. But we're going to do the same thing with the tape. That way we know exactly where that hole is going to be. Okay, so we have everything pre-drilled for our hardware, but we haven't added it yet because we are going to finish these in our own blend of wood butter, which is just mineral oil and beeswax mixture. We add a lemon essential oil, kind of helps with some of the cleaning properties. So it's extremely food safe. These are going to be serving trays. I don't know what people are going to use them for. They want to use them as a charcuterie type tray where they could put meats and cheeses on them. This blend is going to make sure that they're food safe and they can use them for that. All right, so let's finish these. All right, the wood butter is extremely easy to apply. You just simply take it with a rag and just start smearing it in. Okay, so now that we have the wood butter on and stuff, it's time to add the hardware. So we'll just put our screws through the back. Alright guys, so that was it. We made 2 serving trays using 1.5 gallons of Wisebond deep pour and their Wiseshift mica powder. This color that I used is called Equinox. Yeah, so I really want to thank Wisebond for sending that to me and allowing me to do this. The camera really does not do it any justice. It looks so good in person, and you can really see the shifting in the colors. I really wish the camera captured it better. So, but anyways, yeah, so I really want to thank you guys for allowing me to try this out. If you want, in the description below we'll have links to both Wisebond, their mica powder, and anything else that you had seen in the video. We'll have links for all that stuff. But if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Also, when this video goes up, a week from when it is posted, we will be doing a giveaway on our Instagram to give away some Wisebond goodies. So if you're seeing this and I just posted it, go to our Instagram page at organic_woodwork and enter to win. All right, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, God bless.